desert wind blew hard, carrying sand across broken streets. Shops stood quiet, their doors closed, their windows covered with dust. The twin suns burned in the sky, making the land hot and empty. Only a few people moved through the outpost, and most of them hurried with their heads low. In the middle of this forgotten place walked a young alien woman. Her skin was blue, her hair dark and tied back. Her long ears showed her race. In her arms she carried a baby, wrapped in an old piece of cloth. The child was thin, its small eyes wide with hunger and fear. The woman held the baby close, whispering soft words, but her face showed her worry. She had lost her husband in the Great War. He had gone to fight and never returned, leaving her alone with a child. Now people in the colony called her cursed. They said the war had taken her husband because of her bad luck. They said her child would only bring trouble. No one wanted to hire her. No one wanted to share food with her. Every door she knocked on was closed. Every offer she made was refused. She walked to the small market. There were stalls with food and water, but prices were high. The shopkeepers looked at her with cold eyes. One laughed. "Go away, widow. We don't want your bad luck here." Another shook his head. "No one will hire you, not for any price." Her hands tightened around the baby, but she said nothing. She only turned away, her heart heavy. The baby began to cry, a weak sound in the hot air. The woman stepped into the shadow of a ruined wall. She tried to calm the child, but her own stomach was empty. She had not eaten since yesterday. She feared the baby would not survive another night. Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them away quickly. She knew the colony people were watching, waiting to see her break. She would not give them the joy. Behind glass windows, other aliens sat in shops and homes. They whispered about her as she passed. "She will beg soon," one voice said. "Maybe the child will die," another voice answered. The woman heard every word, but she kept walking, her steps slow, her body weak, but her spirit still holding on. As the suns began to fall lower, the desert wind grew stronger. Dust moved across the road, covering her feet. She reached the edge of the colony where the buildings ended. Beyond was only sand and rocks, endless and empty. She stopped there, holding her baby close, her mind filled with fear. There was nowhere left to go, nowhere left to ask. The baby cried again, louder this time. Her heart broke, but she rocked the child gently. "Hush now," she whispered. "I will find a way." But inside she wondered if that was true. Could she find a way? Could she keep her child alive? The sound of footsteps made her turn. At first she thought it was only the wind moving loose stones, but then she saw a figure in the distance, tall, broad-shouldered, walking slowly through the dust. The figure wore a coat against the wind and carried a small bag. The woman's eyes narrowed. It was not one of her people, not any alien she knew. The figure came closer, and she saw his face. His skin was pale, his eyes sharp, his jaw strong. He was a human. Humans were rare here, strangers from faraway worlds. Some said they were clever builders, others said they were dangerous. Most aliens avoided them, but this man walked straight into the colony as if he feared nothing. The woman held her child tighter. Was he friend or enemy? Would he also turn away from her like all the others? Or was there another reason he came to this broken outpost? The human stopped near the market, his eyes scanning the stalls, then his gaze fell on her. For a long moment he did not move. He only stood there, watching the alien widow holding her child. The woman felt a shiver rode and through her. Why was he looking at her like that? The suns dipped lower, shadows grew longer, the colony streets grew quiet, doors closed, lights flickered on in windows. The woman turned away, not wanting to give him her attention, but she felt his eyes still on her, silent, steady, following her every move. That night, as the desert grew cold, the alien widow sat under the broken roof of an empty shop, her baby finally sleeping in her arms. She stared into the dark, listening to the wind, and there, in the shadows across the street, she saw the human again, standing still, watching, not moving, not speaking, only waiting. Her heart beat faster, fear and hope mixed inside her. Why was he here? Why was he watching her? What did he want? She did not know, but she felt that her life was about to change, and the desert night held its breath. Morning came slowly to the desert colony. The twin suns rose, burning red over the rocky horizon. Shadows of ruined towers stretched across the sand. Inside those shadows, the young alien mother woke. Her baby stirred in her arms, weak but alive. She had survived one more night, but food was still only a dream. She stood, tired but determined, and walked back toward the market. Her hope was small, but she still carried it. Maybe someone would have mercy. Maybe today would be different. But when she stepped into the market square, eyes followed her again. Cold, judging, whispering. "Why is she still here?" one alien muttered. "Her child should not survive," another said with a cruel smile. The woman kept walking, her face hard, her arms holding the baby close. Then she froze. The human was there again. He stood near a stall, buying a flask of water. His tall form rose above the other aliens. His coat was dusty from travel, but his movements were calm. He turned, and once more his eyes found her. Not with hate, not with pity, but with a strange focus. The woman felt her chest tig. Why was he watching her? The human finished his purchase and walked toward her. The market grew silent. Every alien nearby stopped what they were doing. No one dared to move as the human crossed the space between them. The widow wanted to step back, but her legs felt heavy. Her child shifted in her arms, small eyes blinking at the stranger. He stopped a few steps away, his voice steady. "You are looking for work," he said. Not a question, but a statement. The woman blinked, confused. "Yes," she answered, her voice quiet but sharp. "No one will hire me." The human studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I will," he said. Gasps rose around the market. Aliens whispered to each other, their voices filled with shock. "Did you hear him? He wants to hire her? Is he mad? She is cursed." The widow's breath caught in her chest. She stared at the human, not sure if he was serious. "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You don't know me." "You don't need to know," he replied, his tone calm. "You can work in my place, and I will pay you fairly." The whispers grew louder. Some laughed, others shook their heads, but none dared step closer. The human's presence was strong, his eyes sharp. He looked like someone who would not be pushed aside. Still, the widow felt fear. What if this was a trick? What if he used her, or worse, hurt her child? She had trusted no one since the war. Her heart told her to refuse, but her child cried softly in her arms. The sound cut deep, reminding her of hunger, reminding her of need. The human looked at the baby. For the first time, his hard expression softened. "Your child needs food," he said. "I can give that if you trust me." The woman's lips parted, but no words came. Her mind was torn between fear and hope. The crowd waited, whispering, watching. If she refused, they would laugh. If she agreed, they would call her a fool. But her choice was not for them, it was for her child. Finally, she nodded once. "I will come," she whispered. The human gave a single sharp nod. "Then follow me." He turned and began to walk through the colony streets. The widow hesitated for a moment, then stepped after him, her baby held tightly against her chest. The whispers of the market followed her. "She is lost. She will regret this." But she kept walking, her heart pounding. They moved past the stalls, past the broken houses, deeper into the colony until the air grew quieter. The buildings here were older, half buried in sand. The human stopped before a heavy door built into a stone wall. He pressed his hand against a panel, and the door opened with a hiss. Inside was a workshop. Machines covered the walls. Wires ran across the floor. Strange tools lay scattered across tables. The smell of oil and metal filled the air. The woman stepped inside slowly, her eyes wide. She had never seen such a place before. The human closed the door behind them. "This is where I work," he said. "You will clean, organize, and assist me when I ask. In return, I will pay you with food and shelter." The woman nodded, but her eyes kept moving. There were machines she did not understand, screens filled with numbers, crates marked with warning signs. One table held something strange, a shard of glowing crystal. It pulsed with light, soft but alive. The baby stirred, its small hand reaching toward the glow. The woman quickly pulled the child back, but she saw the crystal react. Its glow brightened for a moment, as if answering the baby's touch. Her breath caught. What was this place? What was the human building? And why did her child make the shard react? The human's eyes followed the glow too. For the first time, a shadow crossed his face. He said nothing, but his silence was heavy. The woman felt a chill move through her. She had stepped into something far greater than she understood. The human finally spoke, his voice low. "From now on, you stay close to me," he said. "It is not safe outside, and soon it may not be safe here either." The widow's heart pounded. She did not know if he meant to protect her, or if he had pulled her into danger. But one truth was clear. Her life had changed, and there was no turning back. The alien widow stood inside the human's workshop. The air was heavy with the smell of oil and smoke. Strange machines lined the walls, some humming softly, some silent like they were waiting. Wires crossed the floor like snakes, glowing faintly in the dim light. Every corner of the room seemed alive with secrets. The human walked ahead, calm and sure. "This is where you will work," he said, his voice steady. "You will keep it clean, prepare my tools, and help when I ask." The woman nodded, but her eyes kept moving from one strange object to another. She had never seen such machines before. They were not from her world, not from her people. Her baby stirred in her arms, and she held the child closer. The glow from the crystal shard still burned in her mind. She had seen it respond to her baby, as if the child had called to it. But she said nothing. She did not yet trust the human. She did not know if speaking about it would bring danger. The human gave her a small pack of food. "Eat," he said. "You look weak." Her stomach twisted with hunger, but she hesitated. "What about my child?" she asked. The human gave a short nod and brought out a small container of milk. The woman's eyes widened. She had begged for food in the market for days, and no one had offered her even a crumb. Now this stranger gave it freely. Her child drank slowly, eyes half closing in comfort. The woman felt tears press behind her eyes, but she pushed them away. The human did not smile, but his eyes softened for a moment. Then he turned back to his work. He pulled out tools, sparks flashing as he welded metal together. The woman cleaned the tables and gathered wires as he asked, but her eyes kept drifting to the covered crates in the corner. Each crate was marked with the same symbol, a red triangle with black letters. She could not read human writing, but she knew the symbol was a warning. As hours passed, she began to notice more details. Maps spread across the wall, lines marked across alien cities, symbols written in human script. Why would he map places that were not his home? Why would he study alien strongholds? Her heart filled with unease. Was he building something for war? Had she placed herself and her child in the middle of danger? That night, after the baby had fallen asleep, the human worked quietly at the center table. The glowing shard lay before him. He studied it under a scanner, writing numbers on a screen. The widow could not stay silent. "What is it?" she asked, her voice low. The human did not look up. "A piece of power," he said. "It is older than your colony, older than this war." The woman frowned. "Why do you have it?" The human finally looked at her, his eyes sharp. "Because others would destroy worlds to get it." The words chilled her. She looked down at her baby. The memory of the shard glowing when her child touched it returned like a shadow. Her throat felt dry, but she forced the words. "And what do you plan to do with it?" The human's face gave no answer. "I plan to finish what I started," he said simply. The woman felt fear, but also a strange pull. This human was not like the others in the colony. He was hiding something, but he was not cruel. He had fed her child, given her shelter. Yet the secrets in this room could bring death. Days passed, and she continued to work. She cleaned the HFY workshop, sorted tools, prepared wires. She listened to the hum of machines, but the sense of mystery grew heavier each day. When the human left for supplies, she sometimes stood near the crates. Her hands itched to open them, but fear held her back. What if she found something she could not forget? One evening, as the twin suns fell and shadows spread across the floor, the baby woke and cried. The woman rocked the child gently, but the crying grew louder. Her steps took her near the table with the shard. The glow pulsed faintly. The baby reached out with small hands. Before she could pull him away, his fingers brushed the crystal. The shard burst with light. Blue and white energy flashed across the room. Machines trembled, lights flickered, screens came alive with numbers. The woman gasped, pulling her child back, but the shard did not fade. It pulsed in rhythm with the baby's heartbeat, as if they were connected. The human rushed across the room, his eyes wide for the first time. "What happened?" the widow cried. The man did not answer at once. He only stared at the shard, his jaw tight. Then he whispered, "I feared this." The woman's heart pounded. "What does it mean?" she demanded. The human's gaze turned to her child. "It means," he said slowly, "your baby is not ordinary." Silence filled the workshop, broken only by the hum of the shard. The widow clutched her child to her chest, her mind spinning. Her baby, her only hope, was now tied to a secret that could bring death to them both. The human's voice grew grim. "We are no longer safe," he said. "They will come for us." The woman froze. "Who?" she whispered. The human's eyes burned like steel. "Everyone," he said. The workshop was no longer quiet. The shard still pulsed with light, glowing in rhythm with the baby's soft breaths. The alien widow held her child tightly, her arms trembling. The human stood near the table, his eyes fixed on the crystal, his face hard. "Tell me the truth," the woman whispered. "What is this shard? Why did it answer my child?" The human's jaw tightened. "It is a fragment from the war," he said, "but not a weapon. Something older, something hidden for centuries." His voice dropped lower. Your child has awakened it, and that means others will come. The widow's heart pounded. Others? Mercenaries, the human said. Hunters, soldiers. They will kill for this. The woman pressed her child closer. Fear coiled inside her, sharp and heavy. She had lost her husband to the war, and now danger returned to take her child. She wanted to run, to escape the workshop and hide in the desert, but a part of her knew no wall of sand could stop enemies who hunted power. The human turned to her, his eyes burning. You must listen to me, he said. I gave you food and work because I saw your strength, but now your child is part of this. You are in the middle, whether you want it or not. The woman's breath shook. She did not trust him fully, yet he was the only one who had not turned her away. Then what do we do, she asked. The human leaned closer, his voice cold. We survive. Days passed, but peace did not return. The shard no longer glowed on its own, but the woman could feel its pull. When her child slept, the shard pulsed faintly, as if it listened to dreams. When the baby cried, the shard flickered, almost like it shared the pain. The widow could not explain it, but the bond was real. The human worked faster now. He checked his maps, rebuilt machines, and reinforced the doors of the workshop. Sometimes he left the colony for supplies, always returning with dust on his coat and eyes full of caution. The widow cleaned, prepared, and cared for her child, but her heart never rested. Each night she wondered who would come, and each morning she woke with the same dread. Then it began. One evening in the market, whispers spread like fire. Strangers had arrived, armed men with masks and scanners. They asked questions about a human engineer. They asked about a widow with a child. The woman's blood ran cold when she heard. She hurried back to the workshop, her child hidden beneath her cloak. The human was waiting, his face grim. They are here, he said before she even spoke. They've been tracking the shard, and now they are close. The widow's hands shook. Why us? Why my child? The human's voice was sharp. Because your child is the first living thing to wake the shard in centuries. That means he is rare, maybe even the key to unlocking its true power. Her stomach twisted with fear. Her baby, her only hope, was now a target. Then we must hide, she said, her voice urgent. The human shook his head. There is no hiding. Not forever. But we can prepare. That night she could not sleep. Her child rested against her chest, but her eyes stared into the dark corners of the workshop. Every creak, every whisper of the wind made her heart jump. She remembered the colony's cruel whispers, how they had called her cursed, unwanted, and now she understood. Her curse was real, but it was not hers alone. It was the shard and the future it carried. The next morning, trouble came. As the suns rose, she went to fetch water. At the edge of the street, she saw them. Masked mercenaries, tall and armed. They scanned the ground with strange devices. One of them looked up and locked eyes with her. She froze, her breath catching. The soldier tilted his head as if he recognized her. She turned and hurried back, her feet kicking up dust. By the time she reached the workshop, she was shaking. They saw me, she gasped. The human did not panic, but his eyes darkened. Then it has begun, he said. They will come here tonight. The widow clutched her child. What will we do? The human pulled a weapon from the wall, a heavy rifle that gleamed under the workshop light. We fight, he said, or we die. That evening, as shadows stretched long across the colony, the mercenaries moved like hunters, slipping through alleys and dark corners. They spoke little, their weapons ready, their eyes searching. The widow sat inside the workshop, her child asleep against her chest. Her hands trembled as she listened to the sound of boots outside. The human stood at the door, calm, waiting. A knock came, sharp and heavy. The woman's breath caught. Another knock, harder this time. The human raised his weapon, his voice low. Stay back, no matter what happens. The door shook. Then a voice outside called, Human, open this door. We know what you hide. The woman's heart pounded. The child stirred in her arms. The shard on the table flickered faintly, as if it too had heard the threat. The door shook again, harder. Metal bent. Dust fell from the ceiling. The woman pressed her child close, her eyes wide with fear. The human did not move, his rifle aimed at the door. They have found us, he whispered. Now, everything begins. The heavy door shook again. Dust fell from the ceiling. The walls trembled. The alien widow held her baby tight, her breath sharp in her throat. The human stood ready, rifle in hand, his eyes fixed on the bending metal. Another crash, this time louder. The door split slightly at the edge, light seeping through. Voices outside growled orders. Boots stomped against the ground. "They know we're inside," the human muttered. "Stay down. Keep the chi safe." The widow crouched behind a crate, her body shaking. The baby stirred, whimpering softly. She pressed her lips to his head, whispering, "Quiet, little one, please." But her heart beat so loud she feared the mercenaries would hear it through the wall. The door burst open with a scream of metal. Armed figures stormed inside, masks glowing faintly, rifles raised. "Search everything!" one shouted. The workshop filled with footsteps, heavy and sure. The widow shrank deeper behind the crate, clutching her child. The human fired. The sound cracked like thunder. One mercenary dropped to the ground, sparks flying from his mask. The others shouted, firing back. Bolts of red light cut through the workshop, burning holes into walls and machines. The air filled with smoke, heat, and the sharp smell of metal. The widow's ears rang with each blast. Her baby began to cry, the sound piercing the chaos. Her eyes widened in terror. If the soldiers heard, they would find her. She covered the child with her cloak, rocking him even as tears filled her eyes. The human fought fiercely, moving with speed and skill. He ducked behind machines, fired with deadly aim. Every shot echoed like a hammer striking. But for every mercenary that fell, more pushed through the door. Their numbers seemed endless, their voices like wolves. One mercenary moved close to the widow's hiding place. His mask gleamed as he scanned the room. She held her breath, her heart racing. The child whimpered again, too loud. The soldier turned his head. He had heard. The widow's body froze. She wanted to scream, to run, but her legs would not move. The mercenary raised his weapon. A shot rang out. The soldier collapsed before he could fire. The human had seen, his rifle smoking. "Move!" he shouted, his voice strong. "Get to the back." The widow stumbled to her feet, clutching her baby. Her legs carried her toward the rear of the workshop. The human threw down another shot, covering her. Sparks showered across the floor. Smoke choked the air. The mercenaries pressed forward, shouting, "Find the shard! Find the child!" Their words cut deep into her heart. They were hunting not just the crystal. They wanted her baby. At the back wall, the human pulled a lever. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a dark tunnel. "Go!" he ordered. The widow hesitated, staring at him through the haze. "What about you?" "I'll hold them," he said. "Now move." Her throat burned with fear, but she obeyed. She stepped into the tunnel, the cold air wrapping around her. Behind her, the human's rifle cracked again and again. The sound of battle chased her into the dark. The tunnel stretched far under the colony. Her footsteps echoed as she ran, her child pressed against her chest. Every breath came fast. Every corner felt like a trap. She whispered prayers to the stars, begging for safety. At last, she reached another door. She pressed against it, but it would not move. Her baby cried louder, the sound sharp in the narrow tunnel. Panic rose inside her. What if she was trapped? What if the mercenaries followed and caught her here? Then footsteps pounded behind her. Her body froze, her eyes wide. Was it the human or the enemy? The door creaked, slowly opening. Light spilled into the tunnel, and the human appeared, sweat and smoke on his face. He grabbed her arm, pulling her through. Behind them, distant shouts echoed. Mercenaries had found the tunnel. "We have to keep moving," he said, his voice strained. "They won't stop until we're dead." They emerged into the ruins at the edge of the colony. The night air was cool, but filled with smoke and red firelight from the attack. Buildings burned in the distance. Alarms screamed. The colony was no longer safe. The widow held her child tighter, her eyes wide with terror. "Where can we go?" she asked. The human pointed toward the hills beyond the sand. "I have a ship," he said. "If we can reach it, we live." The widow's chest tightened with fear. A ship meant escape, but it also meant leaving everything behind. Yet what did she have left in the colony? No home, no friends, only enemies. Her choice was already made. They ran through the ruins, every shadow alive with threat. Behind them, mercenaries shouted, their footsteps growing closer. Bolts of light struck walls and stones, exploding in sparks. The widow stumbled, nearly falling, but the human pulled her up. "Don't stop!" he shouted. The baby cried, but she kept running, her legs moving with desperate strength. At last, they reached a narrow path between rocks. The human pressed a hidden panel, and part of the cliff slid open. Inside was a small hangar, dimly lit, and in the center stood a ship, scarred from battles but strong. The widow's eyes widened. "Will it fly?" she asked, her voice trembling. The human gave a grim nod. "It has to." They rushed inside as alarms echoed outside the cave. The human sealed the door, his face pale but determined. The widow sank into a seat, clutching her baby. Her heart pounded with fear and hope. The engines roared, the ship trembled. The desert shook as dust rose around them, but as the ship lifted, lights appeared in the sky. Enemy warships, their dark shapes blocking the stars. The widow's breath caught. "They are waiting," she whispered. The human's eyes narrowed, his hands steady on the controls. "Then we break through," he said, "or we die trying." The engines roared, shaking the hidden hangar. Dust filled the air, rattling the metal walls. The alien widow held her baby close, her arms trembling as the ship lifted. The human sat at the controls, his hands steady, his eyes sharp. Outside, the desert night burned with red firelight. The colony was in chaos. Mercenaries spread through the streets, searching, destroying, and above them, dark enemy warships hung in the sky, blocking the stars like predators. "They are waiting for us," the widow whispered, her voice thin with fear. The human nodded once, his jaw tight. "They won't let us leave easily." The ship rumbled forward, slipping out from the hidden hangar. At once the warships turned, their lights blazing, their weapons glowing. Bolts of fire streaked across the night sky. The ground shook as explosions lit the desert. The human pulled the ship hard to the side. The engines screamed, the metal frame shuddered. But the ship held, darting through the storm of light. The widow pressed her child against her chest. The baby cried loudly, his small voice almost lost in the roar of battle. "Hold on!" the human shouted. The ship shot upward, the desert falling away below them. A blast struck the wing. Sparks filled the cabin. Alarms screamed. The widow gasped, her heart racing. "Will we make it?" she cried. The human's eyes stayed on the stars above. "We have to," he said. The enemy warships gave chase. Their engines burned bright. Their weapons flashed like thunder. The human twisted the ship through the darkness, weaving between blasts. Each movement threw the widow against her seat, her arms aching as she clutched her child. Her breath came fast, fear burning in her chest. Every second felt like the last. Another blast shook the ship. Panels cracked, sparks flew, smoke filled the air. The widow coughed, struggling to see through the haze. Her child's cries couldn't get through the chaos. Sharp and desperate, the shard hidden in the pack beside her began to flicker faintly. Its light pulsed faster with every strike, as if it too felt the danger. The human's voice cut through the noise. "We cannot outrun them forever," he said. "We need to lose them in the storm." The widow frowned, her voice shaking. "What storm?" He pointed ahead. Through the window, the night sky split open. A wall of dark clouds churned above the desert. Flashes of lightning ripped through the sky. Winds howled, twisting sand into a raging storm. The sight was terrifying, but it was their only chance. The ship plunged into the storm. Winds slammed against the hull. Lightning cracked nearby. The ship groaned and shook, metal straining under the pressure. The widow's heart pounded, her eyes wide. If the desert had been death, this storm was worse. But behind them, enemy warships followed, unwilling to let go. The human gritted his teeth. "Keep the child safe," he said, his hands steady on the controls. "I'll handle the rest." The widow wrapped her cloak around her baby, holding him as close as she could. She whispered softly, trying to calm him, though her own voice shook with fear. Lightning flashed across the window. For a moment, the storm lit up the mercenary ships behind them. Their black forms twisted in the wind, their weapons glowing through the clouds. They fired again, blasts cutting through the storm. The widow screamed as one shot tore across the side of their ship. Metal ripped, alarms wailed. The ship tilted dangerously, spinning toward the storm's heart. The human fought the controls, his arms straining. "Hold on," he shouted. The widow clutched the seat with one hand, her child with the other. Her body shook as the ship tumbled. Then the shard flared. Its light burst through the cabin, bright and strong. The storm seemed to bend, the winds twisting around them instead of against them. Lightning split wide, leaving a narrow path of calm air. The ship steadied, slipping through the gap. The widow gasped, her eyes wide. Her baby's tiny hand had brushed the shard inside the pack. The shard was protecting them. The human saw it too, his eyes narrowing. "So it's true," he muttered. "The child is connected." The widow's chest tightened. She looked at her child, his face calm now, as if the storm no longer frightened him. What was he? What power lay inside him? Behind them, the mercenary ships struggled. The storm tore at their wings. Lightning struck their hulls. One ship burst apart in a flash of fire. Another spun into the clouds, lost. Only two still followed. But they were slower now, forced back by the storm. The human pulled the ship upward, Out of the clouds, the stars appeared again, bright and endless. The widow let out a breath she hadn't known she held. For a moment she thought they were safe. Then the radar beeped, sharp and urgent. The human's eyes hardened. "They're calling reinforcements," he said. "More ships are coming." The widow's blood ran cold. "How many?" she whispered. "Enough to kill us 10 times over," the human replied, his voice grim. Her throat tightened, fear pressing heavy on her chest. "Then we cannot win," she said. The human looked at her child, then at the shard. His voice dropped low. "Not alone," he said, "but maybe with what we carry." The widow frowned, her mind racing. "What do you mean?" The human turned his gaze to the stars ahead. "Soon you will see." The radar beeped again, louder. Shapes appeared at the edge of space, dark ships rising like shadows, dozens of them closing in fast. The widow clutched her baby, her heart frozen. The shard glowed brighter in her pack, pulsing like a heartbeat. The human's hands tightened on the controls, his jaw set. "They've found us," he said. "Now the real fight began." The black shapes of enemy ships spread across the stars, dozens of them, engines burning bright, weapons glowing red. The alien widow held her baby close, her arms shaking, her breath thin. The shard in her pack pulsed stronger than ever, filling the cabin with faint blue light. The human kept his hands tight on the controls, his eyes sharp. "They will not let us go," he said. "They want the shard, and they want the child." The widow's voice cracked. "Then how can we fight so many?" The human's jaw tightened. "We cannot fight them with weapons alone." The enemy fleet moved closer, their shadows covering the stars. A voice crackled through the comms, deep and cold. "Human engineer, surrender the shard and the child," it said. "Do this, and your death will be quick." The widow's chest burned with rage. Her baby whimpered against her shoulder. She shouted at the voice, though her words shook. "You will never take him." The comm fell silent, then laughter filled the cabin, cruel and sharp. "Then you will watch him die with you," the voice answered. The human silenced the comm, his eyes hard. He looked at the widow, his voice low but steady. "This is the moment I prepared for." Her brows furrowed, fear filling her. "What do you mean?" He pointed to the shard, glowing brighter with every second. "That crystal is not a weapon, it is a beacon." The widow blinked, her voice breaking. "A beacon? For what?" The human's eyes softened for the first time. "For my people," he said. "I sent the signal years ago, but it needed life to awaken fully. Your child gave it that life, and now the call is almost complete." The widow's heart raced. "Then Earth will come?" she whispered. The human nodded once. "If we hold long enough." The enemy fleet opened fire. Bolts of red light streaked through the void. The human pulled the ship into a sharp dive. Engines screaming, explosions. Shook the hull, panels sparked, alarms wailed. The widow cried out, clutching her child. Her fear mixed with fury. How long could they survive? The human fired back, the ship's cannons blazing. One enemy craft burst into flames, spinning into the dark, but more moved in, tightening the trap. "They're surrounding us," the widow gasped. The human's face stayed grim. "Good," he muttered. "That means they won't see what's coming." He turned sharply, diving straight toward the enemy formation. The widow screamed, "Are you mad? We'll be torn apart." But the human's voice was steady. "Trust me." The shard's glow spread wider now, filling the cabin in blue light. The baby's small hand reached out, brushing the pack. The glow grew so bright it covered the walls. The human shouted over the alarms, "Keep him close, don't let go." The ship cut straight through the enemy line, blasts exploding around them. The widow's ears rang with thunder, her vision blurred with light. Still the shard pulsed, each beat stronger, louder, until the very stars seemed to answer. Then it happened. The black of space split open. Dozens of new ships appeared, sleek, powerful, engines burning blue. Earth's fleet had arrived. The widow gasped, tears filling her eyes. The human's lips curved into the faintest smile. "They heard us," he whispered. The comms filled with new voices, firm and strong. "Human vessel, stand by. We've got you." Beams of light cut through the dark as Earth's ships opened fire. The enemy fleet faltered, their formation breaking. Ships exploded one after another, flames scattering across the stars. The widow clutched her child, her chest shaking with relief. But the battle was not over yet. One massive enemy warship remained, larger than all the rest. Its cannons glowed like suns, charging for a final strike. The human's eyes narrowed. "If that fires, the fleet won't hold," he said. The widow's voice broke. "Then what can we do?" He looked at the shard, glowing so brightly now it almost hurt to see. His voice grew hush. "Evie, we give it what it wants, one final connection." The widow's heart froze. "No," she cried. "You'll die." The human's gaze turned to her child, then back to her. "If I don't, we all die." Before she could stop him, he pressed his hand to the shard. Light burst outward, flooding the cabin. The baby cried once, not in fear but in strange calm. The shard pulsed in rhythm with the human's heartbeat. The ship shuddered, power coursing through its frame. The human's voice was steady, even as his skin burned with light. "Take care of the child," he whispered. "Make sure he knows that one human believed in him." The widow reached out, tears falling, but before she could touch him, the light consumed him. The shard flared like a star. A wave of energy erupted, slamming into the enemy warship. Its cannons shattered, its frame ripped apart. The massive vessel broke into pieces, fire scattering through space. Silence followed, broken only by the hum of Earth's fleet. The widow sobbed, clutching her baby. The shard lay dim now, its glow fading. The human was gone. The Earth commander's voice came over the comm. "You're safe now," it said gently. "We'll take you in." The widow wiped her tears, her face pale but strong. She looked down at her child, his eyes wide and innocent. Her voice cracked but held firm. "We will live," she whispered. "We will honor him." As Earth's fleet surrounded them, guiding the damaged ship towards safety, the widow felt both grief and hope. She had lost her husband to the war. Now she had lost the human who gave her and her child a chance. But she had gained something greater, a future, and the knowledge that one act of kindness had saved not just her, but worlds. The stars stretched wide before them, and for the first time in many seasons, the alien widow believed her child had a destiny worth living.